It's
Okay.
your comfort.
Do you feel more better? You feel more
Ready?
better?
Okay,
You
are we ready?
Is that appropriate? More better?
More better.
I don't know, Tony.
You feel more better?
I know.
You feel better? It's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to our Thursday, August 5th, 2021 school board meeting. We will start with an introduction of board members. I'll begin with Jim.
Jim Lothridge from Pittston.
Matt Lillybridge, West Gardner.
Peregrine Bolduc, Ecclesiastic Student Representative.
I'm Matt Marshall, Gardner.
Tony Feet, Gardner.
Becky Fless.
Patrick Saucier, West Gardner.
Nicole Medora, West Gardner.
Teresa Garrett, Pittston.
Colin McGough, Gardner.
Thank you. Administrative staff.
Pat Hopkins, Superintendent.
Andrea Dish, Business Manager. Terry McGuire, Director of Technology.
Angela Hardy, Director of Curriculum.
Thank you. Could we stand please for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Get the same flag.
Public comments.
Yes, the board received 2 email communications. The first one is from Amy Hawks. And she writes, I would like to encourage MSAD11 to mandate staff vaccinations and mandate masks among staff and students despite vaccination status, as well as participate in pool COVID testing. Should you choose not to take any of these CDC or AAP recommendations, I would like MSAD11 to fund students to transfer to other public or private schools that will follow these recommendations and or offer remote learning. While MSAD11 and Maine in general has done an admirable job of vaccinating residents following CDC guidelines, the Delta variant and the variants that will inevitably arise as long as we have a significant percentage of unvaccinated people mean that we need to continue these measures until a vaccine is available at all ages and at least 70% of the full population is vaccinated. The second email was from Karen Doyle. There is an update on the turf field on your agenda for tonight's meeting. I understand things have not gone as planned for a number of reasons, and the field will not be available for the start of preseason August 16th. I have emailed Nate Stubbert about this and understand that there is no money budgeted for transportation. No one could have predicted we would be where we are today. I know traditionally buses have not been provided for teams that practice at other locations such as the Ice Vault and the YMCA. But given the distance and the number of players involved, I think it makes sense to provide this option. I am asking that you consider adding funds to the budget to provide transportation for soccer players, at least for the 4 days of double sessions. Thank you for your consideration.
Great. Thank you for that. Prioritization of items and alteration of the established agenda format sequence as needed.
Yes, in your folder, each of you have received an updated agenda. I will go through that. I apologize. We try to send these revised agendas out 24 hours in advance. That just wasn't possible yesterday. So I will walk through what the adjustments are. So under review and approval of agenda and minutes, C, approval of minutes, I'd like to add special school board meeting, July 29th. On the top of page 2 under correspondence, we just received a letter of resignation from Roger Collins, an educational technician at Tech 1 at the Riverview Community School. Under committee reports, under July 13th, it says minutes were not available at the time of the posting, but they have now been posted. Flipping to page 4. We accidentally included Chad Perry as a head coach for cross country, but that is inaccurate, so that needs to be deleted. Under team leaders, it's Jen Dearborn who is the special ed team leader, and Hope St. Dennis is the allied arts team leader. We have added a staff transfer, Nicole Perret, has transferred from an Ed Tech 1 special ed position at Helen Thompson School to an Ed Tech 1 special ed position at the LER School. The next page under nominations, we had listed that we were hoping to hire a physical education teacher, and we've done that. We have Lori Beth Rankin, and that her salary would be $54,719. And then we have Elizabeth Casey, who would be a grade 5 teacher. This is only a 2-year position. It is federally funded through ESSER or the American Recovery Plan funds for $52,322. Then under my report, I want to give you an update on the status of the sale of the Gardner Area High School Modular Unit. I also want to add in there information on a FOIA request, which is a Freedom of Access request. And then under executive session, I would like to add an executive session to discuss use of property. And that falls under 1 MRSA, section 405(6)(c). Those are my changes.
Wow. Only a couple.
Sorry.
That's fine. May I have a motion, please, to accept the agendas as adjusted?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Matt. May I have a second? Thank you, Matt. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Great.
No roll call.
No roll call. I was gonna shave
That
minutes. off
saves
these
30
meetings.
minutes off the meeting, right?
I know I had to pause for a minute. How do we do that?
That's why God gave us.
It's been a while. Oh, my goodness. Okay, approval of the minutes of previous meetings from the regular board meeting of June 3rd, the special board meeting of June 17th, and the special board meeting of July 29th. May I have a motion to approve? Motion from Jim, second from Matt.
Sure.
Okay. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Perfect. Great. Thank you. Recognitions and celebrations.
Just as written, really excited for Rayanne's 2 recognitions and Sean Jimenez. So very pleased for all of them.
And excited for Pat Hopkins, who's Rotarian of the Year.
Thank you. I did not put that there. Someone else snuck that in.
It's okay. You have to take what you get. Correspondence?
Yes, as written. However, I do want to highlight a card of appreciation from Martha Allen. Martha Allen is my administrative assistant, as you know. What you probably don't know is her dad, Merrill Danforth. He passed away earlier this summer, and he had served on the MSAD11 school board for 20 years. And so we discussed sending flowers on behalf of the board to Martha and her family. So she's written a card just saying, thank you for the lovely floral arrangements that you sent for my father's funeral. It meant so much to both me and my sister. My dad served on the MSAD11 school board for 20 years, and it was a very touching reminder. Thank you. So
When I was first elected to the board, I was able to serve with him, and he was just a lot of fun. Had great comments and was really engaged, just loved kids. So he was really a great part of the school board.
the rest of the correspondence is just as written.
Okay, committee reports. The only, let's see, policy, I think, is the only one that we have some. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, curriculum, June 8th, June 13th, and June 27th.
We canceled that.
Yes, yep,
We've been busy.
a little.
Angela's been busy. We had a curriculum committee meeting on June 8th. We talked a little bit about social studies instructional materials for 6 through 8. TSI History Alive and McGraw-Hill's networks. Did you want to talk a little bit about?
We shared the curriculum review process, curriculum instructional material review process, sorry, with the board, and we explained why those were the top 2, and we moved towards McGraw-Hill. That was the selection. It's called Networks. And it has an inquiry based, but, you know, it follows the scope and sequence we were looking for based on the main learning results. So that's the one we selected.
We used a subcommittee at the middle school for that, right? So
Yes, we did. Yeah, a team of teaching staff and myself met every other week for a while to get to the place where we selected the material.
we also talked about proposed use of SAF funds for 2021 and 2022. Did you want to hit the high points?
Yeah, so we have Title I, which is what we use for our kindergarten through 5th grade literacy and math intervention. We pay for salaries and benefits of the staff who provide those interventions. At Helen Thompson, we provide that intervention through Title V for math because they don't qualify for Title I because they've been 3 years or longer below 35% on their free and reduced lunch rate, application rate. And so therefore they no longer qualify for federal funds. So we are required to have a comparable program at Helen Thompson. And so we pay for the literacy position out of our local budget. And then Title I pays a little bit for some resources to support the intervention system. Title II, we fund with a class size reduction. So we look at where our achievement data is and where we would benefit most from reducing class sizes, following policy, of course. And we pay for salaries and benefits of 1% of class size reduction. And then the other portion is professional development. And right now our work is towards inclusive and equitable school systems. So making sure we have the staffing knowledge to meet all of our students where they're at when they enter our classrooms. And then we do get allocated Title IV money, but we transfer it to Title I money and Title V money to pay for those salary positions. And I'll just say that to qualify, we have to be at 35% free and reduced lunch or higher to get access to these federal funds. And with universal meal access, which is wonderful, we find that our free and reduced lunch application rate has dropped drastically, as low as in like 19% to 26%. If we were required to use last school year's free and reduced lunch application rate for this school year, we would be down a few $100,000. So we weren't required because of COVID. The state was able to negotiate us to use the prior year's rate. So we're working diligently now at coming up with some alternate strategies to normalize the procedure of filling out the application or opting out of the application if people know they don't qualify. And just making it part of our practice for all students to have opportunity, because it's more than just providing meal access, these forms, it's providing our district really necessary funds. For Title I alone, we access over $400,000 annually. And that will be a pretty big hit if we go below 35% this year for next year's funds. So that's part of our ESSA talking, that was that meeting and another meeting talking about our free and reduced lunch process.
Thank you. We had another meeting on July 13th, which was, Angela played a big role in that, reading probably a couple of dozen statements from the public. Becky opened up with a discussion regarding the governor's emergency mandate and the law surrounding being able to meet virtually. So it sort of explained that, so everybody kind of understood. As I said, it was a virtual meeting, so there was a live feed. There was a really robust discussion about critical race theory and a number of questions from various board members. So it was I think it was a very successful meeting. We also discussed and reviewed 3 policies: curriculum development and adoption, teaching about controversial and sensitive issues, and instructional and library material selection. I think it was important to do that. So if those folks in the public that wanted to tune in could understand how we get to where we get and the policy surrounding curriculum. So thank you. And that's it.
Great. Any questions or comments from anyone? Alrighty, thank you. Policy, I know we didn't have a meeting, but we have some.
So we've got 2 things. Yes, we didn't have a meeting. We have one policy up for a first reading, which is actually to rescind. Actually, Pat, if you could describe, was there a change in statute on that policy that we're rescinding?
No, there was not a change in statute. This was a while ago since we looked at this particular
Yes,
policy.
yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think the information was incorporated into a different policy, and according to the state, this one is no longer necessary. It's kind of redundant, so.
Right. So we're pulling that one out. Do we want to do these as 2 separate votes?
We can do them together if you're okay with that.
I'm okay with together. Yeah, that's cool. And then the second reading on the policies as listed, which we reviewed at our June 3rd meeting. And we did the first reading of that on the special board meeting on the 17th, June 17th. So this is the second reading of those. I did want to clarify one thing. Actually, I was reviewing this on the second reading for GER. There was a potential update for the holidays for non-unionized staff. Sorry, can't talk. And basically, it was the list of the holidays for the state of Maine. Instead of Columbus Day, we recognize Indigenous Peoples Day. I think we talked about that in the meeting. I don't know where we want to go with adapting that to comport with.
So, yeah, that was mentioned to me by more than one person. I think Cullen had also mentioned it to me, and with all that's going on, I just dropped it.
Yeah.
So in your folder, you will see an updated GER policy in which that change has now been made. And I've sent the corrected version to Martha to make sure that it is posted to the website should you approve it this evening. So it's been amended.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, nice, yeah. So yeah, I think we just need to have, I'm happy to make a motion to approve the first and second readings as listed. Second.
Moved by Tony, second by Pat. All those in favor?
This is changing Columbus Day.
To Indigenous Peoples' Day. Yep. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the change? Opposed? Okay, one opposed. Thank you. Let's see, Wellness Committee and Student Rep, no meetings. Hope Field Committee. We continue to meet and work on this project.
So we continue to meet on a weekly basis. I think it's clear that our carpet has not yet arrived. We will have conversations further along with you regarding that. But it is disappointing that it has not arrived. In the email regarding busing, it is true that it will not be installed by the start of preseason. So Nate is currently trying to find, that just landed on my nose. Is trying to find alternative sites for practices and potentially for games. So historically, as she said, we have not provided transportation to practices because we don't provide transportation to practices when they're here. We don't provide transportation for practices for like golf team, because they don't practice here, they practice at a golf course. So I'm not sure the capacity of our transportation department to provide transportation. That was something I would have to explore if the board wanted it explored. Of course, it's too late to add money to the budget for this. The budget has already been approved, so you would have to work within your budget. Later in the meeting, I was going to inform you that we are currently down either 3 or 4 bus drivers. I'm not certain because we are in the process of trying to hire a brand new driver. The individual just passed his license this week, so we're really excited. He has a few more hoops to jump through, but there is potential that we'll have a brand new driver. However, there is also speculation that one of our existing drivers may not return. So 3 or 4, I'm not sure. And with 3 or 4, according to Gabe, we can cover our current runs. But should we have a driver go out due to medical reasons, a driver leave, a driver sick, we are going to be in trouble. We currently will be able to cover the routes, but if someone goes out, we will have to combine routes like we did last year, which means for longer rides for students. And if you have a driver who just calls in sick for the day, then that means that you have Charles, the Assistant Director of Transportation, and or Gabe, who have to drive buses to get us through. There are just no backup drivers, no spare drivers at all. So if it is something you wish to pursue, I would have to consult with Gabe to see whether it's even manageable, given the capacity of our department. And then I would have to check with, of course, Nate and Chad and kind of fold them into that conversation as well. So,
Teresa.
Where is the practice going to be held now if they can't use the field here?
I don't know. They're working on that.
Would Quimby Field be?
No, Quimby Field, that is not appropriate for what they need. There is talk about Kent's Hill. She mentions
The ice vault.
the ice vault in front of the ice vault, the Y. I'm not sure where else.
And football has traditionally never practiced on the football field. They practice on the baseball and softball field. So the turf not being here is not a problem for practice. But then there's the Boys and Girls Club that soccer field is no longer available because they've begun digging on that. So we find ourselves in uncharted territory.
Right, and soccer can can have some of their practices on the field hockey field, so that's a possibility.
And they can do, so we're just gonna have to share and schedule and figure out how to do all that, but I don't know how to proceed.
If you would like, I mean, I could certainly, I could ask the question and then just bring that back to you. Honestly, later in the meeting, I am going to recommend to you that you have a special board meeting in 2 weeks. Think that there's a lot happening around the state CDC regarding mask mandates and what's going to happen. And so rather than making a decision on some of those things tonight, I want to talk about it. I really think you should maybe come back in 2 weeks and have a decision then. So I could add this item to that agenda.
I think that's a good idea.
You'll know by then whether we can do it or not, right? We're talking to Gabe.
Based on the staffing level that we have now, yes.
I think it's. sometime
Jim and then Matt.
I'm sure you've talked to them, but the manufacturers given us any kind of a delayed delivery date? I mean,
So I'd like to kind of hold off talking about that now, and I've added an executive session for us to kind of discuss the contract. So if I
Okay.
could hold off.
Matt,
Because I'm not from here and I don't know all the facilities. Does the, like middle school, is there a middle school soccer team and do they have their own dedicated field? Or are we, talking about possibly bumping, one level for another?
We do have fields at the middle school, and all I can say is that Nate is looking at all of our options.
Yeah, I don't want to get into
So,
weeds and tell
I-
Dave what
I-
to do.
Yeah, so I don't know what he's going to choose, but Nate, as the athletic director, is responsible for athletics middle school through high school, not just high school. So he should be looking at all of those options.
but Matt raises a question that I hadn't even considered, and that is that youth sports typically use our elementary school fields, but if we are down a field or two as a district, do we then get to use our fields before?
Yes.
So we just need to be clear about that and be communicating with the community about that, because that could really upset some folks.
That's a big field out there too.
Yes, yep. So we're gonna have to work collaboratively. Yes, Colin.
I just wanted to express thanks and sympathy to Pat. All across the state, all summer, there's been breakdowns in transport and delivery for a lack of drivers. Maybe some other folks who work with institutions, even food service deliveries have been interrupted, which is sort of the bare minimum. Commercial transport have been offering up to $5,000 signing bonus on demand just to get somebody in the door in these trucks and vehicles. So thank you. It's not easy. And if anybody at home would like to consider entering into the school bus network, please do.
And I appreciate that, for a little bit of a sales pitch. I mean, it's a great job for the right person. I mean, at a minimum, it's 5 hours a day. So you have time in the morning, time in the afternoon, you have the midday to yourself, and you get full 100% health insurance. You get 100% dental insurance. So the benefits for this position are significant. And for those who want to work more than 5 hours a day, there are other opportunities occasionally throughout the year, such as the sports trips, right? And field trips and those sort of events.
And what is the age requirement? 21 and over?
I don't know federally. I would assume it's 21 at a minimum. But you have to have a CDL license. And so that's a bit of a hurdle for someone who doesn't have that. There's random drug testing that has to happen. There's just all kinds of legal
Fingerprinting
requirements.
and-
Yeah. So it's a bit of a process.
But it's not
Which is,
impossible.
it's a good process.
It's a great process.
Absolutely.
It's not impossible. And I think it is a great opportunity for somebody who, for the right person. It's a great opportunity, so. Here we find ourselves. Okay. All right then, general information.
Yes, general information. We've been pretty busy hiring some ed techs, a new guidance office administrative assistant at the high school, a new librarian over at the Pittston Randolph Consolidated and Riverview School. You will see we have lots of fall coaches, department heads. You will see we still have some vacancies where we haven't filled positions. Coaches. Last I knew, we were still looking for golf coaches, if anyone's interested in golf coach. And team leaders and staff transfers. So that is just letting you know about all of those positions.
Great, okay. Any questions, comments, wonderments? Hearing none. Nominations.
Yes, I have nominations. There are various administrator stipends that we have in the district. First is to Alicia Morris. Alicia oversees the McKinney-Vento Act, the liaison. So she does all of the homeless, students who are homeless. She works with their families to support them. That takes a lot of work. She also is a liaison for the English for language learners. Then we have Terry McGuire, who is responsible to be our affirmative action Title IX officer. And so if we have any complaints regarding affirmative action, discrimination, inappropriate behavior, harassment, Terry deals with all of those. She's responsible for investigating all of that. And then every year, you pay an administrator to serve as the assistant superintendent or acting superintendent, should I be unavailable or I should be away. And so I am recommending Angela Hardy. The way you compensate that is 5% of her salary is what she gets to perform those duties. So those are my nominations.
Are you willing to do that? Okay,
We discussed it when she was hired, but she needed
remember
at
that,
the
yep.
time a couple years under her belt to learn the district and understand how we function. So for 4 years, Chad Kempton served in this capacity. But now that Angela is seasoned, she is ready to assume that role and that responsibility.
and I would imagine it would be a relief for Chad, because it's a big job when you're not available.
When I'm not here, that's when things seem to happen.
Everything
right?
falls apart. All right, so we need then a motion to accept these nominations for the administrator stipends.
I motion to accept.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Pat. Any questions or comments? We are fortunate to have such wonderful administrative staff that do a lot of hard work, so thank you all for supporting that. All those in favor? Opposed? Perfect, motion carries, thank you. All right, nominations, new hires.
Yes, we've been busy this summer hiring new staff. So I won't identify everyone listed here. But as you can see, we have a number of people filling positions, regular classroom teacher positions, video production, guidance counselors, speech and language, PE. So I do need a motion to accept these individuals.
I make the motion to accept the individual.
Thank you, Teresa. A second
I'll second
from Tony, thank you. Questions or comments? Yes, Cullen.
Once the Easter funds expire, what happens to these roles?
They're gone.
So there's no longer range plan to try to staff at that level. It's simply, is it while we have it?
They have been told right up front that they're only 2-year positions. Now, where will we be in 2 or 3 years? Who knows? The board could decide that we want to work really hard to maintain a certain position or two or not. So we've been very clear that once ESSER ends, these positions are no longer.
Is Nicole the same math coach we've had? Or is she new?
Nicole is new.
We now have 2 math coaches.
Oh, okay. So our first math coach did the work of 5 people, so.
2 math coaches and 3 literacy coaches. You already had 1 literacy coach in your budget. Well, you actually have 2 literacy coaches in your budget, right? Yeah, we have 2 in the budget. And then we added 1 to pay out of ESSER funds.
Other questions? All those in favor? Motion carries, thank you. Little business.
Okay, old business. I put this return to school under old business because it just doesn't seem to
Where
go
else can we put
away.
it? It's lingering.
It's lingering. So as I said a little while ago, that this is just ever evolving, the information that is coming forth. And so I just wanted to spend a little time kind of talking to you about a few things. So masks, let's maybe start with masks. First of all, I think it's important that you know that the federal government is mandating masks on buses. All public transportation, that includes school buses. So when we open this year, students and staff, anyone on the school bus will be required to wear a mask, period. That is non-negotiable. Then the CDC is currently recommending that all students and staff wear masks indoors. It's not a requirement, but that is a very strong recommendation. They are recommending that we maintain 3 feet of physical distancing when possible to reduce transmission. However, if it's not possible, that should not be the reason not to bring all students back to school. They're strongly encouraging that all students are back in school. But if we can do 3 feet, or that 3 foot distancing, we should do that. They also are strongly recommending pool testing as a protective layer. So I know the board said no in the spring. I just want to talk about that one more time to see where you stand today regarding that. When we discussed it in the spring, it said pool testing, we had to have a minimum of 30% participation at every building. That 30% requirement no longer exists. I heard today that that has been removed. So as to not be a hurdle to prevent school districts from participating in pool testing. Pool testing, what it will do is it will reduce the number of students who have to be quarantined should they be deemed a close contact, okay? At the end of last year, we began using Binax now. And we will continue to use that. That is permissible for staff only. So if staff have been deemed a close contact, they can still come to school, but before they enter the building, they have to receive this test that can be administered by the nurse. It takes 15 minutes, I think, for the results. And if the results are negative, then they can work. Other than working in the school, they're supposed to be quarantined any other time. And we can do that every single day that they're supposed to be quarantined to see whether whether they test positive or not. So what you're going to have to decide this year is whether you're going to mandate that all students wear masks and staff, whether you want to participate in the pool testing or not. The Department of Education is going to be collecting, I think it's actually the CDC, not the Department of Education, but they're going to be providing very publicly the percentage of students who have been vaccinated based upon zip code. So we're fortunate, MSAD11, I think we're the only communities with the zip code 04345, right? Whereas some school districts, they have multiple zip codes and they have zip codes that are shared amongst school districts. That's not us. So hopefully we'll get an accurate number of students who have been vaccinated, just to give us that information. We are also going to be required to collect vaccination data from staff. They're going to be required to tell us anonymously, we're not collecting names, but they will need to tell us whether they have been vaccinated or not. They don't have to provide proof. They just have to fill out an anonymous survey.
Is that a HIPAA violation?
Not if it's anonymous.
Is it to track the percentage? So you know. Like,
we will then
50%,
have to report to the Department of Education the percentage of staff who have been vaccinated, and that will be released publicly per school, not per district, but per school. So that way the public, they're aware of the percentage of staff in each building, of the percentage who have been vaccinated. So, and that will have to be done monthly starting in September. So September's release of information will be based on vaccinations that were completed in August, right? So, so I just want you to be aware that that's going to be absolutely required. From my perspective, The current plan is for all students to return 5 days a week in person. We are, and I'm going to share with you later in tonight's meeting, the American Rescue Plan, or ESSER 3, or we've kind of referred to it as both. I indicated to you back in the spring that we were expecting to get $3.6 million. And we talked about through the budget process, how I envisioned us using the money. We're at a place where we're close to being able to submit our application. And so I want to once again share that and give an opportunity for input on how we're using that money. But what we discussed during the budget season is that we hired 9 additional classroom teachers for the purpose of reducing class sizes, which will help us with the physical distancing in the classroom. Okay, so we believe that with that physical distancing, the smaller class sizes, that we can bring students back in 5 days a week. Now, with that said, we're still going to have some challenges at the high school, at the middle school. Those of you who are parents or have been parents, if you've been in the school at all when children or students are passing in the hallway, yeah, 3-foot distancing is not happening. It is virtually impossible to be able to do that, given the width and the number of students. It just can't happen. It also is extremely difficult, if not impractical, to have the 3-foot distancing at lunchtime around the cafeteria. That, if you recall, that was a significant reason as to why we weren't able to bring everyone back last year, because we had to maintain the 6-foot distancing and we just couldn't accommodate it. But now that the rules are that they encourage the 3-foot distancing, but not at the loss of having all students in the building. So I just wanted to be really clear about that. And we are not planning on having a formal remote academy like we did this past year. If we're expecting everyone to be in school, we're not providing a remote instruction. And then the administrative team this year has not yet met for various factors. And so when we come together in a couple of weeks, we will discuss what our plans will be for students who are quarantining, what that will look like, so that they can access their education. We just need more time to do some of that work so that we can provide you and provide families with answers to that question. Angela, did I forget anything?
I don't think so, other than their feedback.
Do we have any idea how many students have just vanished? Don't know where they are. They were talking this morning on the DOE meeting that there's a pretty significant number of students who've just disappeared, that nobody knows where they are. Do we have any idea where we are in our district with regard to that?
Well, I can't answer exactly, but what I can answer is we are required, there's a child find process that we are required to follow, and Alicia is part of that, as well as Pat. That we know who was released for homeschooling, and many of those families have re-enrolled. And we don't know other families, if we have to, that paperwork usually starts coming through in the fall to kind of monitor are they reestablished as homeschooling families for this coming year. And then we have, formal move in and move out requests, so we can track those. So we know if they're going to another district at least, and their paperwork follows them, or if we're gathering students from other districts. But I don't have a number yet. I don't know if Pat does, as to where we stand. We do know that we've had a lot of enrollment requests this summer because we've been tracking them at the central office while the schools didn't have full staff, at least in the month of July.
Yeah, I believe our pre-K is maxed. I believe every slot is filled at this time, and we have 96 slots available. Those are half day. So I believe we're filled there, and yes, I'm presently receiving usually more than one a day requests for superintendent's agreements or transfers within the district. So parents are thinking about the start of school year and doing the work. It is not unusual for the August to be, especially the last 2 weeks in August, to be extremely busy with student transfers from school district to school district. But that's all that I know. Martha has not provided me with those numbers, nor have I asked her to provide those numbers to me yet. I will share, I had a meeting this afternoon with area superintendents, and we just talked around the room. So what are you guys doing? What is your district doing? And it is, as you can imagine, all over the place. So there are some school districts that they haven't made a decision yet. They're doing the same thing that I'm proposing, that we just pause, maybe do some research. I'll talk to you about that, and pause for a couple weeks. There are some who are saying, we agreed to follow the CDC guidelines and the CDC recommendations last year when we developed our return to school. And if we follow their recommendations, and their recommendations are that students and staff wear masks, that's what we need to be doing. So there are school boards voting in the area to mandate that everyone wear. There are others that say if it's a recommendation, it should be a recommendation here in the school district as well. You have some who are moving forward with pool testing. You have some who are not following through with pool testing. You have others that are doing the work in case pool testing becomes important to reduce the number of students who have to quarantine. So it really is all over the place in this area. Two neighboring school districts may be doing something entirely different. So I don't see a trend exactly one way. We've heard Lewiston says it's a recommendation. I think I heard Portland's mandating it. So what I would like to propose, I guess, and I do want to stop talking and just let you talk and discuss it. But my thought is, I think this is really important. It's an important decision, and it's going to invoke a lot of feelings from parents and students and community members. And I think it's important to hear what their thoughts are on this. And so I also would like to find out people's thoughts on on pool testing. So I'm wondering if the board would be willing to entertain having us do a very simple, brief survey of families to say, would you participate in pool testing if it were decided to move forward? And I understand all the challenges. I remember the conversation with Matthew, and it was very enlightening. I was like, whew, there's a lot more to that than I had given thought to. And also, what is their preference regarding masks? If you recall, with some of the money that we've spent previously, I think it was it CR? What was that other fund? CRF one, that we spent over $1 million putting in that O2 Prime system into our air filtration. And that is designed to take I don't remember the terminology.
The tiny
ions
particulates.
and
All the little particulates.
take them out of the air, so it just, it makes the air cleaner and purer for the students. So if that's in there, if that's working, does that impact our decision to wear masks or not? But so that's what would be the proposal. Look, I get a sense from our community, their feelings regarding students wearing masks, and from staff. I'd like to hear from staff as well. Our younger students in elementary school and some in middle school, you have students who can't be vaccinated. They're not eligible yet. And so we want to make sure that whatever we do, we keep them safe and we keep our staff safe. And so it'd be interesting to hear back, see what folks think. So I will stop talking.
I like the idea of the survey. I think that makes sense to see where the communities are at, and and dig in on what makes sense that way. I had watched that video with Dr. Shah. I wasn't able to attend that, but I watched some of that from last week, and it talked about, for the pool testing, I think it's the nasal, not the nasal pharyngeal swab, so it's not the brain one, I guess, that I've heard it called. It's the light one. And that he made a point that it does have some benefit to, it's calibrated to pick up the pre-spikes in infection and how it's transmitted. And I don't quite understand how that works, but
Can we make a motion that we have a survey sent out to the parents?
I have a
You
quick question
teachers.
though.
So I think we can, but I think we'd like to talk about it a little bit first.
But will the data be available for our next special meeting?
Yes, that would
Okay.
be the
Should be.
intent.
Yeah, I mean, that would be, yes, right?
Jim,
If we opt to go with pool testing, is that going to make it less likely that we will have to mandate masks for this year? What's your thinking?
The CDC strongly recommends that you do both, that you wear the mask, and then the pool testing is just another layer of
protective layer,
protection.
yeah.
Having a 9-year-old granddaughter who cannot get vaccinated, I am concerned for her health. And, but I've also substituted in classrooms in middle school where those kids are bouncing off the wall by the 5th and 6th period because they've had a mask on all day. And I have too. So I really want to see us, if we don't have to wear a mask, I'm really in favor of it, although I carried mine with me today. So, anyway, we'll see what happens. That's
One of the things that I said to Pat this afternoon is, the kids, they're gonna come back to school, and in like the first 4 weeks of school, you're gonna start seeing runny noses, colds, and everybody's gonna freak out and think, oh my God, it's COVID. And we're gonna think that for a while. It's COVID, we're all, and it's not necessarily going to be COVID. And so for me, I don't want anybody to panic, and it almost feels like, okay, mask for a month, and then we could back off of that. And one of the things that Dr. Shah said in the webinar, whatever it was last week, was that, he said the things that I'm telling you today were different 48 hours ago, and 72 hours from now, they're gonna be a little bit different. So we're learning, and viruses are funny creatures, and they're programmed just by nature to survive. And so they go, they change, they mutate constantly. And I think that as much as I don't want to wear masks, and I don't want to ask the kids to wear masks, but if we can protect our kiddos at the very beginning, and then if we see things not materialize into something and we could back off from that, I feel like that would be so much better than having to say, okay, we have to start quarantining and pulling kids out of school. And
if we see an increase in absences, as a reminder, if you're ill, you stay home.
right,
So we're going to once again have a spike in absences, both on the part of students and staff. So you need to be prepared for the ramifications
Right.
of that. Last year, we had a shortage of substitutes. I'm not sure what it will look like this year. But there is the potential, the real potential.
Yeah.
The other thing to keep in mind as you think about masks, had a conversation with Gabe. It's like, how does it work when you mandate masks for buses, but you don't at the school level? You're gonna have students that are going to arrive at the bus without a mask on both sides,
both
right?
sides.
Maybe they bring it with them in the morning, maybe they forget because they don't have to wear it during the school day. And certainly if they don't have to wear it the school day, they're gonna forget it and not have it with them when they get on the bus. So that's gonna create a situation for our bus drivers who are going to have to be requiring our students to put masks on. So hopefully every student would just accept that requirement and put a mask on. But we know that that will not necessarily always be the case.
Yep.
And so we're putting our bus drivers in situations where they're gonna have to deal with some discipline issues potentially.
And putting our bus drivers' health at risk. Yes, Matt.
I kind of feel in the absence of a mandate, I kind of think it's important to let parents decide what's best for their kids. You know, you'll have some that'll come to school with masks on, and you'll have some that won't. Teachers should have the same choice, I suppose. If they feel that they're at risk, they should wear a mask. If they feel they're not at risk, then that's their business. So I'm just big on, you know, like I said, barring a mandate, I think it's important for parents to make medical decisions on behalf of their kids. And my kids, my son won't be wearing one if it's not a mandate, so. That's it.
Pool testing is a PCR test, right? In a test tube shipped off to a lab.
Yeah.
It's more sensitive, Tony. That's why you can pick it up easier as opposed to the Inex, which is the antigen, which is, you know, if you're on day 4 of being exposed, antigen to pick it up, whereas day 1 on the PCR, you have a better shot of getting it.
I believe that they are recalling and stopping the PCR test for COVID, where it's not distinguishing between influenza A and B and COVID. So that's one of the concerns that I have with the pool testing is how many false positives are we gonna have, considering that the FDA and CDC have stated publicly that in December, which I don't get why they're waiting until December. If it doesn't work now, why not pull it like we do with other procedures and tests and medications, is pull it. But that's one of my concerns that I have. What happens if we get a pool of tests and it gets sent out? Now these individuals to have a false positive, they're out of school for 10, 14 days, whatever is set for the time period. So that's my concern with that. And I'm gonna, with Matt, I believe the masks should be parental rights. I know we're not gonna make everybody happy. I mean, we can say, yeah, we're gonna mandate masks, we're gonna mandate, you know, all this stuff. Some people are gonna be happy, some people won't. If we take and decide to let the parents decide what's best for their family, then some people are gonna be upset because we're not mandating it. You know, we're in a damned if we do, damned if we don't. So the right thing to do, and this is me talking as a parent, I should have the choice to decide what's right for my children. Just like Matt should have his choice on what's right for his children. I feel that, and this is not a shot, and this would come off really bad, and I'm not trying to upset anyone, but I believe that elected officials have overstepped their boundaries and have taken the rights away from the individual citizens. And that's my personal belief. I believe that there's a lot of intelligent parents in our school system. Working for the fire department, I've met scientists, doctors, nurses, lawyers, all walks of life. And there's so much information. I thought of even making a presentation for the board with everything that I've come across with my research for work and personal research. When this all started, my oldest boy was terrified I was gonna get COVID and die. And doing CPR on a late 40s, early 50-year-old man with all of your gown, masks, goggles, face shields, the anxiety that I felt that night really pushed me to figure this out. I won't get into that. I feel that my stance now is we really need to fight for the parents' rights. And as for staff members, I believe staff members should have a choice too. I understand it's different when you go to a place of business and you're collecting a paycheck. There's SOPs, SOGs that are in place to ensure that there's a smooth operation of that business. And we are in the business of education. That's, let's face it, we have a business office, et cetera. I think the staff members should have their own choice on that because it pertains to health. Who are we as a board to dictate, you need to do this as it pertains to health? I think we should stress the fact that if you're not feeling good, take the day off. Don't send your kids. Think of others. As it pertains to mask, I've heard it numerous times that mask protects other people. Well, on our inventory lists, it's personal protective equipment. The masks are designed to protect you as an individual. It's just like when I wear my bunker gear to go to a fire, that protects me. It doesn't protect other people. These masks, N95 masks, protect you from most viruses. So that's my spiel. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yes.
I agree with both of you. I kind of feel like the CDC changes like Maine's weather. You know, 1 minute wear the mask and the next minute the mask doesn't protect you. And I think a survey would be what we need to do. I think parents' rights need to be considered and children's needs. I think it's very sad to have these young children going to school for the first time and not even being able to see their teacher and the expressions. You miss a lot with facial expressions, smiles. There's so much that kids are missing. Saw this little baby, the child was born during COVID, has never seen anyone's face out in public. Can you imagine? All they see is a mask, no smile, no expressions, just through the eyes. I really think that it's a great idea to do the survey and see what happens.
Thank you, Nicole.
Just a quick question. I would support a survey for whatever that's worth, 100%. But in the event, so you had mentioned about not having remote academy this year. In the event that a student or if you do need to quarantine, what will be the plan for them to maintain their schoolwork?
That's the part that I said the administrative teams hasn't met yet. We haven't had a chance, and that is still something we have to process through, work through to see what we are able to provide and offer. I mean, we made a considerable investment last year in technology and in training around synchronous learning, so there may still be some options, but I'm just not prepared tonight to present a plan. Jim and then Cullen.
I want to clarify one thing. I'm a little bit confused. Did you say that they are mandating mask wearing on the buses?
Yes,
That's a
that's
federal-
a federal
That's a
requirement.
federal
Federal
requirement.
requirement.
So I'm thinking if Matt, if he brings his son or daughter to the bus to be picked up and opts not to wear a mask, makes that decision for his child, then that child cannot get on the bus. Is that how we're talking about? If they show up, are we going to have some paper masks available for them on each bus? I think we should personally.
We'll have to.
And then we should have them when they leave the school ready to hand out. I mean, it's a cost, but we're going to have
We
to.
must have them, right?
They might still be on clearance.
We, Gabe will be purchasing some, and the Department of Education, they provided some supplies last year.
Mhm.
Gabe will be reaching out to them to see if we can procure some of those face masks again.
So we're actually talking about the choices as far as what the parents want to do once the kids get to school, not on the way to school or back
Right.
home.
Correct, and for
Okay.
parents who choose not to have their child wear masks on a bus, they will have to transport their children to
Yeah.
school themselves.
We should be pushing for that too, as much as possible, especially with the shortage of drivers. I know my son-in-law took my grandson and granddaughter to school every morning, picked them up every afternoon.
If families are able to continue doing that in some fashion this next year, yes, that would
Be a big
continue
help.
to be helpful.
New York does not have school buses.
They have public transportation. We don't
Right,
have
but up
public
until
transportation.
under sixth grade and under, the parents' responsibility to get their child to school.
In Maine, you're required to provide transportation, so that option doesn't exist here. So we have to do something. Cullen was next.
Oh, I'm sorry, Colin.
Yeah, I have three questions actually. The first one's just technical. Is pool testing going to present any unreasonable financial or logistical barrier?
Financially, the cost is covered by the state. Logistically, maybe. There are concerns about the management of it. it could potentially be a lot, especially if you're looking at the high school, the middle school. From what I gather, and it's been a while since I've listened in on information on pool testing. But basically, we were told that we would select one day a week. So say Monday morning, first thing, someone would have to make sure that all of the swabs, all of the tubes were available for every single classroom in which you had families who had selected to participate. And the first 10, 15 minutes of the classroom, however long it would take, the teacher would then need to distribute them to only those students who had registered, the parents had registered, signed up. Then the teacher would need to gather them back. And then someone would have to go around to each room and pick them up so that they could be mailed or picked up from whoever is doing the actual testing. So logistically,
Yeah,
it would
that's not
take some
insignificant.
time.
It eats into classroom time. and
Yes, it does eat into classroom time a little bit. Yeah, so the question is, does it outweigh though the impact of the logistics and the lost time?
Gosh, it's hard to know, especially with the news last week that even folks who are vaccinated can still be full-blown carriers. Thank you for that. Then the next question was, I would really love to see a separate survey that goes to just staff and faculty. I have some lingering concern that what the ultimate legal liability ends up being if someone dies and we haven't provided what constitutes a safe working space. So just to hear from folks, what do they think is a reasonable working condition would be good to know. I also don't want to see, especially folks who might be more at risk within our employee population, leave because they feel like we're not providing a safe workspace.
We may send the same survey to both, but we would distinguish between them. So we
Employees and
would
parents.
have the results from staff separate from the results from parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be very helpful, thank you. And the third one, and I really hate to be a bummer, I am struggling personally to understand how masking during class time when students are seated, but unmasking during cafeteria time and athletics, those two things seem more risky than sitting in a still isolated place. So I'm sure your team is thinking about it, but if we meet again in 2 weeks, it'd be nice to know more about how do we manage that?
Those are questions that other school boards are asking. It's the same thing. It doesn't.
To be full
It
disclosure,
doesn't-
when my kids eat, they're disgusting. It is all over.
I think a lot of parents can say that too, so.
When my husband eats.
But people are asking that question. I mean, we don't have the answer, of course.
Yeah.
But that is a question that's being asked in the CDC. Now, the Commissioner of Education, Commissioner Macon, is going to start having weekly briefs with superintendents starting next Monday. So I'm hoping that once a week we'll receive an update, and I don't know whether that type of question will be answered or whether it can be answered. I mean, really the direction is coming from the federal CDC, and that's what they're telling us. They're saying that it's ideal to have at least 3 feet apart when they're eating, but it's not worth, if you can't, it's not worth having them out of school any
Right.
longer than they've already been. So it's worth the risk.
Tony?
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of check in on, like, I really like the idea that we're approaching this. Actually, Dr. Shaw had a great phrase that it's a suite of efforts that we've been putting in to do this, the distancing, the masking, the vaccinating. Certainly even just having these conversations is a way to make sure that we're keeping the students safe and in school, keeping the staff safe and obviously in school. So as the work that we've been doing is, like, in a lot of ways is working. One of the things that he said was that Maine schools led the nation for health, safety, and in-person instruction, which really hit me as like, wow, we were healthier and had more kids in school more of the time, compared to the rest of the nation. So that's really powerful. What we're doing is working. I guess I have a little bit different, I just want to get this out of a little different view on what masks are doing. Again, partly what Dr. Shaw is saying is that masks catch the vapor droplets on which the virus rides. And so that's a two-way street. It keeps it inside my mask and also keeps other people's air from entering my airway. So and I know I'm wearing a mask right now, and I would love to be done with it. And I feel like things have shifted for me, just like, nope, we're back into this unknown area. And I've played this game before. And there's an element of gambling to it, and I'm not a gambler. So then I start to look at it like a seatbelt, and you don't really need a seatbelt till you need one. And the trouble is we don't know when we're going to need one. And that's the approach I have on that. So I just wanted to I'd be supportive of masks if there's ways to dial in more, mask-free time, Colin's point of like sitting still, does that change anything? Fresh air breaks, that kind of thing. Again, I know I'm wearing one. I can't wait to be done. But I really want to make sure that we're in a good, healthy place to do it. And again, to continue the work that we have done to lead the nation in keeping kids healthy and in school.
Let me just say something. First off, with your mask, I hope I didn't offend you with my stance. I have absolutely no care what your choice is, because that's your choice. Okay, I have to wear a mask at work when I go to the hospital and stuff like that.
Right.
And I agree with it. Yes, it does stop a droplet. I mean, it does. If it does protect that one incident, then yeah, of course it works. There was a video that was put out last year when the mask talk was, and I found it very interesting because they had a petri dish and they had a thermal side view. I don't know if you remember that video where they coughed and you see the plume and it goes into the petri dish, and then they grew a whole bunch of stuff on it because bacteria needs a surface to grow on, heat and moisture. The problem that's happening, and there's a test that was just done, and I really wish I printed this out, but there was a test that was done where 8 students went to school with brand new masks. And I believe there's a couple of teachers. And what they did is at the end of the day, they put it in a plastic bag and sent it off to a lab. And the stuff that was found for an 8-hour period of time was multiple kinds of bacterial pneumonia. One student, I hope they did further research. There was also bacterial meningitis that was found. There was also fecal matter that was found on these masks. Okay. In 2008, Dr. Fauci co-authored a paper about the 1917 flu, the Spanish flu that was around. And this paper talked about the leading cause of death for this flu was actually bacterial pneumonia. My concern with us mandating the masks is what happens on the flip side. What happens if a staff member or a child comes down with bacterial pneumonia and dies? Are we now liable for that? So my thought process is it should be the parent's choice on that. I mean, is there a right answer? Yeah, there is a right answer, but guess what? We have a 50-50 shot of getting it, and that's my concern. And my personal belief, I don't believe those types of masks work. I do believe N95 masks work. I do believe, you look at virologists, when they're doing their studies, they have a self-contained breathing environment. It's all there. There's a reason why they have that and not just a regular cloth mask. And I look at my children, and I had a discussion having supper before coming in this evening, and I asked them about that. And when I said, we're going to talk about masks, you just saw them just drop. Like I could have smacked them and had a better response. You know what I mean? I'm sorry to put it that way, but it's like I'm looking at the well-being of the children, but on the same side, I have to look at the parents and staff members too when we talk about this stuff. So I just, my main thing is I hope I didn't.
No, I think this is part of the discussion here, right? This is like figuring out what works, what is working, what are we doing right? How are we going to keep people safe? It's tough to know. And, actually, I was thinking I entered the summer sort of cautiously optimistic going into the summer. And now I'm optimistically cautious going into the fall. And then, it just shifted for me a little bit in there. So.
Matt.
the going on the whole pool test thing or whatever, is the school nurse at each building expected to be the one who's in charge of all that?
I don't know, Matt. Honestly, I have not done any work around pool testing since the board said, no, we aren't doing it. So I haven't spent time thinking about it. There's now the push from the CDC strongly encouraging school boards to consider it as an option. So it's back here for you to consider. If you decide to move forward, then we will have some work that we will absolutely have to do. And that may include, at one time, I thought that maybe we would use some of the ESSER money to try to hire someone to do that work. So it wouldn't be an additional requirement or additional burden on nurses, but I'm not sure if such a person exists.
And then I have a couple of follow-ups. Sorry, do they,
No problem.
are the tests going to a lab in the state? Or are we shipping them out?
I don't know.
And I'm just,
I could guess. I think it's in the state, but I'm not
I
100%
think
certain.
it's in the state.
we sent ours down to Cambridge, and not to pick a fight, but the whole false positive thing, I did over 300,000 tests and the false positive rate was negligible and it was usually lab error. So I don't necessarily agree with that argument. And the other thing too is if someone comes back with a positive, teacher doesn't come in, that's when you do the antigen test. Come to the front door, sorry, turn them back around. And those things are less than $5 a piece.
Yeah.
So I would imagine the state's.
The
passing
state's
them out.
providing that as well, yeah.
The administration of the pool testing would be onerous at every building.
We would have to do the test a different day in each building. Well, 2 schools will have to do it on the same day since we have 6 buildings, but yeah, we would have to rotate.
And then I'm just wondering if the state is prepared for a massive influx of how many tests can they do a day? They're gonna have a 24-hour turnaround. And you
I
don't test on
think it's a
Friday.
2-day.
2-day turnaround.
Yeah, in a perfect world, until the machine gets jacked up.
Kind of like our turf field.
Jim?
Originally, we were looking at 30% had to qualify for the pool testing was a 30% goal. Is that completely eliminated? Is there what is an effective amount? Not just necessarily what's required, but I mean, if we got 3 people in a class of 30 or not, well, if we've got 2 kids that'll do it, or parents agree that their children doing it. What have we got?
That's an excellent question. And I think that is another reason why I am recommending the survey be done. Because maybe you have 30%, but is that a large enough group to justify all of the logistical challenges that come with it? Who knows? I've heard one school district that they had an average of between 50 and 70. So parents a percent of their parents who responded said that they were supportive of the pool testing. So if that happens, then, if you have that level of participation, then it makes sense. If you only have 10%.
Elementary may be more likely to do it with their kids. I would encourage my daughter and son-in-law to get my granddaughter in the pool. I'd certainly like to know that she's protected. And if there is a problem, to get her help immediately.
And you don't have to participate as an entire school district. You could select just individual schools if that's what you chose to do, so.
I'm just wondering how many people are gonna fill out the survey.
We'll find out.
You never know. I have to say last year, we had just an exceptional return rate. Generally, would you agree to that? Yeah, we really did. So I hope that our experience will be the same this year. Parents are paying attention. They want to know what's going on and they want to have a voice. And so I anticipate a high return.
Super.
It's sort of like the carrot and the stick, right? I mean, a lot of parents might decide that their decision on whether they want to put masks on their kids might be dependent on whether we pool test or not.
Mhm.
So those two things on the survey really probably need to be really tied together, I think. Maybe there's a question that basically asks that.
Yeah. Angela's taking notes. So I
Jim
don't,
had another question.
I just wanted to make a comment. I did actually discuss with my granddaughter about masks. And same as Patrick, I had exactly the same response from her. You know, it's like I kicked her in the shins. She was not a happy camper. If you know my granddaughter, she's liable to tell you about it. So, but anyways, you know, if we can avoid it, I'm all for it. I am very concerned about the new variants that are showing up. I certainly don't want to be back where we were a year and a half ago in the future, great. I'm glad for the survey. I think it's going to be fantastic.
thank you. So it's up to the board whether there's a motion. I don't think it's necessary. I think you can just give a nod of approval. Yeah, I would like to have this information. It would be helpful. And we will bring this back to you so that we can have a more informed discussion. I think it's the 19th is the Thursday, the third Thursday of the month. So we'll have it ready for
Just
that.
check.
Now, is there a way to word it such that parents of high school students in particular
Yeah, it
garner,
is.
you know, that opinion as well? Because having the older kids be on board with maintaining health is going to be really important.
Okay. We want to make it simple at the same time. We need to make it really simple and
Simple.
straightforward. If we want to get
Yep.
the return that we
Right.
need. The longer it is, the more complex, the less likely parents will just go on and respond. It's just gonna be like, ugh, I'm too busy. I don't want to do this.
Can you do that through email too, or no?
Yes, yeah, that's how it's done.
It's all
Yeah.
done through email.
Email and through text. We use our Thrill Share. Okay, so
Short sentences.
are we ready to move on?
Personally plan on continuing wearing my mask throughout the entirety of the school year until the risk is so low that I don't even need to worry a single bit about it, but that's just me. And I plan on wearing an N95 like I have been. That's just my personal opinion and concerns.
Thank you, Gwen.
And we respect that.
And you've got that fabulous black color.
We thought it came in white and we got very excited when it came in black.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the white ones look so dirty after like
Oh, they
a couple
do.
hours wearing it.
No,
Last-
they do. You're right. Thank you, Gwen. Okay, next.
Yes.
Testing stack. We're all done with full business?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, new business.
So new business, every year you are required to officially vote on the school physician. And we are most grateful for the fact that our own Gardner Family Medicine has agreed to serve in that capacity. We don't identify an individual doctor. They kind of share that responsibility, but for the most part, it is Dr. Abby Hoke, who is really the contact for most of our nurses and provides them support. So I do need a motion to have Gardner Family Medicine serve as the school physician.
I make a motion.
Motion by Teresa, second by Cullen. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Motion carries. Great. Thank you.
We are also required to have school attendance officer. We don't have an officer, so we have historically just charged our building administrators to serve in that capacity. So that would be my recommendation. And again, I need to have a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Patrick and second by Tony. Questions or conversation?
Pat, does that keep us in compliance? Like who requires us to have the attendance officer?
The state, the law requires that we identify a attendance officer. So yes, as long as we're identifying the building principals, we should be in compliance.
Other questions?
So that means that like we don't have per se an attendance office where kids check in. The principal just handles it instead.
Each building already has always dealt with their own attendance. But when you have issues of truancy, some schools they've designated one person. We don't do that. Instead, we have our building administrators deal with the truancy issue. Now, they may incorporate their assistant principals, their guidance counselors, the SRO, and other individuals to assist them with that, but it is dealt with in-house versus at a district-wide level. Okay,
Which is better, I think.
yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
We're just not that big either.
Yeah.
So we have a motion, or we just need a vote? All those in favor? Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, the next one is, I want to bring your attention to your policy on BEDG. It is the school board minutes. And so in your policy, it says that the minutes shall reflect the type of meeting, regular, special, or emergency, the date, the time, and the place of the meeting, and the names of the members present, those absent with excuse, if any, and those absent without excuse, if any. And at a minimum, our minutes are to include the wording of the motions and resolutions, the names of the board member making the motion, the name of the board member seconding the motion, if it's required, and the action taken in the vote. Members who abstain because of conflict of interest, the law says that we're also supposed to record that and the reason why they are abstaining. So historically, as you know, if you look at your board packet for this year, we have historically provided more information than just that. We've always provided a little bit of a description about the conversation. I am proposing that we no longer do that, and that we, for our regular board meetings, that instead we revert to the policy and provide just the minimum as required. The reason for that, and why I think now is a good time, is now we're live streaming. So all of our meetings are available for the public. They're being archived. We can go back years, and anyone who wants to investigate and wants to hear what the conversation was around the hiring of the school physician, they can go right back to this video and listen to it for themselves. You will, when we met last Thursday, there were a couple questions like, where's Andrea? Andrea spends so much time typing up these minutes. It can take her an entire day to be typing these up. I asked her to be here tonight so that she can, if you have any questions. But as you know, her workload is beyond her capacity. And so we need to take something off of her plate. I would like to be able to take the minutes off of her plate, and this would allow her to do so. If I am just taking who's making motions and things like that, then my administrative assistant can type up the minutes and type them up pretty quickly. So I don't know, Andrea, would you like to add to that?
You're right. This summer, I've taken 4 vacation days, and the summer's almost over. My workload is exponentially, and Pat and Becky have been after me to remove something from my workload. I am probably the only business manager in the state who does minutes, but those are traditionally done by the business manager. It is the only thing that I do that isn't finance related. It would seem, if I'm going to unload something, that would be the first thing to come off my plate. I don't know how my position started doing the minutes. My position sits with the board because when I was hired, I was hired as a board employee. So the two were separate. But as long as I remember, my position and the person before me have done minutes. So I think now is a good time if the board chooses.
It is my strong recommendation that we do that. We're still meeting the letter of the law. And if anything, will now have more information available to the public because we will have archived these meetings.
I make a motion that we do that.
Second.
Motion by Teresa, second by Tony.
Oops, I'm sorry. Can I also make another recommendation about the minutes? I think it would be helpful for whoever's doing the minutes, if they use the agenda and they marked where in the minutes each conversation began. So that's if somebody wanted to look for a specific topic in the minutes, that they could refer to the date stamp or actually the time stamp in the minutes. So somebody would just need to go through, but I think that would be very helpful for anybody.
Agreed.
Thank you, you saved me from asking that. I was on my.
Agreed.
I have a question too. Tony.
So we have Cullen and then Tony and then Matt.
Two quick questions. One, and they're both for Terry, I think. Terry, are we keeping a privately held copy of the recording in a RSU11 owned media device? Because once we put it on YouTube, it's technically theirs, and I don't think Google's going away tomorrow, but you never know. So for archival purposes, do we have a copy that belongs to us on media owned by us?
As of tonight, I have started doing the local copy. The ones on YouTube now, we do not have a local copy. We would have to go in and copy those, download those.
Okay, but that'd be the practice going forward for distant generations who are in awe of our board meetings.
But for those minutes, we have paper copies and we all know that paper is forever. So.
Unless there's a fire or
A flood or,
The second one is actually like an ADA compliance thing. If there is not closed captioning available for those recordings, is the short form of the recorded motions sufficient?
Yes.
for the public? Okay.
Yes, because according to the law, what I read to you, that's all your minutes have to provide. So we are meeting the requirements.
Good questions. Tony and then Matt.
So to expand back out, I mean, I do support of obviously the idea of making sure Andrea can focus her time or at least be able to take some time off. Either one is great. To expand though, with the tech side, do we have access to a transcript? And maybe this is a question for Terry, a transcript that generates, sort of auto-generates through either through YouTube or through the recording process, or can we get that?
I don't believe that that is a YouTube feature. I don't believe it's a feature for anything. I think you can turn on your closed captioning for YouTube and when you watch it, but I don't think it types up a transcript.
Yeah, it like for instance, the CDC, Dr. Shaw thing, it has an option to, it says open transcript, which I wasn't able to do, but it's got a function in there that allows it, but just it didn't. So I don't know
I can check it out.
if that's something that we need to manually do that's going in the opposite direction. I wouldn't want to explore that too far. But if it's something that's sort of like voice to text, yeah, that auto generates, which may not be compliant with the law, but might give another reference for people, you know, like a searchable, you know, PDF kind of thing.
Jot.
Yeah,
I can check it.
it'd be neat, you know. Thank you, cool.
Matt?
So this is just for the school board meetings. Is there any thought for committee meetings as well? Because I know Angela probably spends a ton of time typing curriculum committee minutes because they're really in depth and.
And smart.
That actually is a conversation for another time that I would like to have.
Okay.
It's not on the agenda, but the conversation I would like to have maybe in September is whether you want to live stream every meeting that you hold. Do you want your curriculum meetings live streamed? Do you want every single policy committee live streamed? And then what that means for your technology department, what that means for you. And I think what you decide then will inform your question about those minutes. Okay. So have a motion and a second. I think that
Then we vote. All the questions done? All those in favor? Great, thank you. Okay, let's see, board chair, start time for board meetings. So we've, over the last year and a half, we've met at 5:30, but by policy, we meet at 6:30. So we're going to continue to meet at 6:30. So going forward an hour, moving forward. And I'm guessing that's the same thing for committee meetings. We didn't actually talk about that, but
Yeah, I think the
with the
committee
exception of
meetings,
curriculum.
curriculum changed.
Yeah.
But the policy will be at 5:30.
Before this meeting.
Before this
Mhm.
meeting, and finance is usually at 6
At
o'clock
6 o'clock,
anyways.
yep.
So that will continue. But we switched to 5:30 when it was virtual. It was easy for people to do that because they were driving and had to come here.
Right.
But now because of other work commitments, we will revert back to 6:30.
Jim,
Dropout prevention has historically been at the middle school at 3:15. Works fine for me. I don't know if who's gonna be the new
Jared Dumas is
Jared,
gonna
that's
be
what
the
you told me, I
new,
couldn't remember
yeah.
who it was.
Yep.
Jared, if that's gonna work for him, we could always move it to the high school if it'd be more convenient for him.
Yeah, he will reach out to folks, and hopefully as a group, you will make the decision.
Okay,
The intent, it's at 3:15 because we want elementary staff as well as high school staff to be able to participate. And of course, elementary staff are in class until 3 o'clock, so
Yes.
that's why we've done 3:15. I'm certain you will hear from him in September.
okay, very good.
any other questions? Local delegate to the MSBA Annual Delegate Assembly. This year's Delegate Assembly is scheduled virtually for 9:30 on Saturday morning, October 23rd. We need a delegate.
Yeah, so that's the next item, and I have already received, I have already received the MSBA proposed resolution packet.
Yes.
So if we vote to have someone serve in that capacity, I will be able to forward that information to you immediately.
Do we have a person who's dying to do that?
Oh, yeah,
Yay.
I actually enjoy doing it.
I know, we've talked about this. No, and I think it's great, and the resolutions.
I do.
He does love it. The resolutions committee has worked really, really a lot this year to get this work done so that it can be distributed to boards across the state earlier, like a month earlier.
Yeah, a lot better than last year.
Which is really great because the information is pretty dense, and the work is pretty labor intensive. So this is really a great step in the right direction. So.
Last year, I didn't even have a chance to talk to the board about it. It was just like,
Working remotely for MSBA has been really wonderful because we can do all this committee work over Zoom, and it just makes it so much easier because we have people that travel from Calais and further away than I think Calais is the furthest away part of the world, but people.
that's part of Canada.
Maybe Madawaska's a little bit longer.
Maybe, but like Holton, and we have people that come. Anyway, so this has been really great for this work this year to get this stuff done, so.
So if Jim wishes to serve in that capacity, the State School Board Association does require the board to take action on his nomination. So I need a motion.
You do. Would somebody like to motion that Jim be our delegate?
Or
Teresa, nominate Jim to be our. Yes, so, and seconded by Cullen, and questions or comments?
Go, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
I can't imagine anyone better for it because Jim is super detailed and he will be asking questions, which I love.
You gonna bring us back t-shirts or something?
No, there's no goodies to get this year. It was as bad as last year.
Really unfortunate.
No swag.
But that is on October 23rd.
Mhm.
And
Which is a Saturday, I think.
It is a Saturday,
Mhm.
but, and that is the Saturday prior to the Maine State School Board Annual Conference, which is the 28th and the 29th. And so if you want to mark your calendars for the 28th and 29th, we haven't received any information yet. I think it's going to be virtual again, I think so. But this is a great opportunity for board members to attend various clinics regarding boardsmanship or regarding other topics that impact education. There are a lot of legal conferences and they're like 1 hour conferences that you can attend, and there's just legal advice on various topics, and when you can join in, and it's very informative, and so we encourage as many board members who can attend. It's great professional development for all of you.
And Pat, do you know the time?
They're all day,
It's
but
all
I
day,
don't
yeah.
have the time.
So like
yet.
9:30 on.
Usually starts at like 7 or 7:30
Mhm.
and goes till like 4 in the afternoon for two full days.
I think Friday usually ends
Ends
around at 3 o'clock,
yes, yeah.
2:30, 3 o'clock.
And when it's in person, it ends with like a little party but we don't have the party now, so we'll get back to the party someday.
So we need a vote on that.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of Jim being our delegate? You can vote for yourself.
I will have by September a survey for the questions that we're looking at. I'd like to poll the entire board as to what their wishes are. So that I can represent the board, not just me, which is what I had to do last
Yep.
year. So I just had to take a wag at it.
And maybe since we've got that information now, maybe we'll have an opportunity to talk about some of
Oh, yeah.
it, some of these resolutions at our September meeting, so that the survey could go out and be completed a week or so before the conference actually happens,
Plenty of time. Good.
Yeah. when the assembly actually happens. So that would be great.
So Jim, those should be in your mailbox now.
Good, thank you.
Great, perfect. Let's see, we got that. And the last thing is the MSBA Cultural Competency Institute 2.0. We've all received middle of July that we could attend that. And it is a once a month, starting the 16th of this month. We'll have the first sort of groundbreaking or get acquainted, figure out what's going to happen over the next 9 months. And it is an hour and a half, 6 to 7:30, September, October, November, December, all the way till May 9th is the last one. And it's responding to developing a deep understanding of creating culture and of inclusion, developing brave spaces for conversations about race in our schools, creating a cultural connection for students and parents, creating a sustainable practice for diversity, equity, and inclusion in our schools, guiding policy development in school districts, and recruiting, hiring, and retaining faculty of color. So we've all been invited to participate. I think we've got 3 board members that are participating.
Yes, I believe there are 3 board members who've signed up. It's $500 a piece. We have, I believe, 3 or 4 administrators also registered.
So if anybody's interested, please let us know, let Martha know like right away. And I think it's gonna really be a great opportunity. I'm interested and excited by it.
And if you're if you're not certain, they encourage that you register for the 1 hour session on August 16th. That is no cost. It's just so you can go in, see what it is, decide if it's something that you're interested in. If you are, then let us know and we can register you for the actual.
So it would be 6 to 7 on August 16th.
6 to 7:30.
No, the first,
Is it
no,
not?
it's 6 to
No.
7 on August 16th. The first time is only
Oh,
1 hour.
no, you're right. Yep, 6 to 7. I'm looking at it right here. Yep. The print
gonna
is
be
so
virtual?
tiny.
Yes.
Yes, yep. Yeah,
I think last year they had over 400 people participate. It's broken into 3 sections. So you have a section for teachers, guidance counselors, social workers, a group for district administrators and building principals, and then a different group for superintendents and school boards, so that they modify the topics based upon the roles that we all serve.
Interesting stuff. So if anyone's interested, we'd love to have you participate. Would it be helpful to send this email out again in case you've missed it? Forward it to anybody? No? Okay, good. Moving on, superintendent's report.
All right, so I have a few things this evening. One, the status of vacant positions. We are close. We are close to filling all of our professional positions. So today we filled the final classroom position, which was the grade 5 over at Pittston Randolph. And right now we are doing some reference checking and that type of thing for an elementary social worker position. But other than that, we are filled for the professional positions unless we receive a resignation between now and the start of school, and that's always a possibility.
Don't say that.
Support staff, we're working to fill our ed tech positions. We've filled some, but there are still slots available if there are people who are interested. Most of them are in special education. And as I said, we're always looking for new bus drivers. So anyone who's interested in being a bus driver should contact our office.
Do we still have the banner out?
Yeah.
Is it still there?
Is it
Okay.
there?
I don't drive that way very often, so I'm not.
I never
certain.
look, but I remember seeing it
I
there
just
a
don't
long
go
time
that
ago.
way.
I just forget to look.
All right, then I have an update on the American Rescue Plan, or ESSER. So I'm actually gonna plug my computer in and project this up here so that members of the public who are watching this can see what we're talking about. There we go. So as a reminder, we are slated to receive a little bit more than $3.6 million. We are looking at spending this money over a 2-year period. We'd be spending it this next year and the following year. With this particular grant, we are required to spend 20% in a very targeted way to meet the needs of students and to really address learning loss. So what we've done is we've identified our class size reduction, or the 9 teachers that we've hired. That comes out to roughly $780,000, which meets that 20% requirement. So we've made that a project by itself. We're then looking at hiring, as you know, social workers. We added a couple social workers. And that is designed to help meet the social and emotional needs of our students. We also are currently exploring and considering purchasing an app called Grace. And that app would be available for students across the district, and actually their parents could use the app as well. We're told that parents of elementary students sometimes use it. And it's all around mental health and providing supports and resources for our students. So if we have students who are struggling, they feel like they're being bullied, they feel like they're in a mental health crisis, and they don't know where to go, it's a midnight and they need to talk to someone, they would have this app, and all of those resources are available so that they can reach out and get some help. And we just listened to the presentation this week. It sounds really exciting. It's about a $3,000 setup fee, and then it's $2 per student. So with about 2,000 students, we can make it available for about $4,000 a year. So right now, I know Mr. Kempton is showing some of this to students to see, and I recommended maybe Gwen, that you look at it to make sure that students would use it and access it. And what we were told is that, of course, you're really not going to have elementary students use it, but instead what they're finding is that elementary parents, so if they're in the situation of domestic violence or something along those lines or some sort of abuse going on, that they use it for themselves or to report to DHHS. So it is as valuable for families as it is for individual students. So I've added that to our application. Put some money aside for summer and after-school programming. As you know, we had after-school programming. We had some summer school programming this year that was successful. We want to explore having some summer school programming for next year as well. We really expanded our ESY, extended school year, for our special ed students. And so that was a significant increase to the cost. But if you remember a few years ago, we had 1 day a week after school programming for some middle school students. So I threw some money in for this just in case we're able to recreate that. The hurdle is that we used to be able to provide transportation. And I don't know that we'll be able to provide transportation. So without transportation, I'm not sure if it will work. But it's there for the time being. Money in for window replacement. We talked about this. It's at the, oh, I forgot to bring the exact schools. I think it's LER, Riverview, the high school. I think those are the 3 buildings that we have windows that we're unable to open any longer. And so we're looking at replacing some windows so that we can open for airflow and really help the ventilation in our buildings. Looking at 2 outdoor classrooms, one at the middle school, one at the high school. So students can, again, it's another place so that we can help the physical distancing. Students can have classroom outside. When we have lunch, it's another place that there would be like a roof structure so that students could eat outside in a protected area. The modular units that we're buying, and I'll update you on those in a moment. Those all need supplies, technology, lockers, whiteboards, so we put money in this account to help cover the cost for that. Hiring 9 teachers, we now need additional technology for those teachers. So that's another project to try to get laptops and other needs in their hands. Helen Thompson, our heat pumps. Our heat pumps are old. Those of you who have been on the board, you remember we have been budgeting every single year to try to replace some of them. So what the heat pumps do is they circulate the air in the classroom. And so we're hoping to have it funded so that we can replace some of the heat pumps. Angela has already spoken to the curriculum committee about this, and we have money in for new curriculum. We've talked about the math, the social studies, the ELA, some additional coaching for the middle school, some coaching on math. And so we have that in here. Our instructional coaches that we discussed earlier tonight, this is where the money for them and for the instructional support position, that half-time position that is attached to the new assistant principal position at Helen Thompson, that money is in there. COVID substitutes, we need money for COVID substitutes that we had last year, and that's where we dedicate 1 or 2 substitutes. We guarantee employment every single day for a period of time. I have 150 in here now. That is considerably lower than what it would take to really have them all year and have them next year, but we're hoping that things will improve as the year gets along and it won't be necessary to have them for the full year. The reason I did that is because I don't have enough money to fund them any longer.
How much do we pay them a day?
Last year, the board voted to pay $120 a day, correct?
Except that expired, but yes.
And that's without a college degree, or that's with?
That
Being a sub doesn't require a college degree.
But
But if you're a long-term substitute and you're certified, then you get paid at a different rate than a long-term sub who is
Okay.
not certified.
because when I subbed, it was a different rate if you had a college degree and if you didn't.
That is no longer.
Okay. Well, it's been a while.
Yeah.
We have money in here for the central office to try to provide some support for the central office. Oh, here we go again, Terry. It's frozen, so it's not showing. Okay, sorry, this keeps freezing. So when I make a change here, it's not reflected up there. So just one moment. We practiced before you arrived and we uncovered this problem. And we don't know how to fix it yet.
Can I ask a question while we're waiting?
Yes.
I noticed all this money, it's like 3.6 million. Can you use any of that money for adult ed needs?
If it meets the criteria, but certainly the focus is on day school.
I know.
Adult ed has received its own money last year. It received some federal funding. So here we have the business office. We're trying to get some support in the business office to cover some of the invoicing that we have to deal with. It takes a lot of time, a lot of Andrea's time. And so managing all of these federal dollars is just a time, I don't want to use the word that just came to mind. It's just draining. So we've put money in to try to get some support there. I'm not sure whether we'll be able to do so or not, but we would like to. Special ed, there's some assessment materials that they need to purchase and some PD. Then we have the parking lot at the Pittston Randolph Community School. We have that in there because as more parents are driving their children to school, the parking area, the road area is a real serious hazard. And so we now have, so we want to get them off the road because of that. So we have more parents driving the students because of the need for physical distancing. We also have the new modular. So we have more staff members. We're bringing in 2 additional COVID staff members. So we need additional parking there. We have a storage unit to try to clean out the rooms that has taken up parking space. And so that lot is really tiny. So we really need this additional space. So we're requesting that. We're requesting Wi-Fi down to Hope Field. We are trying to have more classrooms out, or more physical or PE classes outside, but we don't have internet out there. And so they use the heart monitor system and they can't use that system outside because it requires Wi-Fi. And so we're trying to make that connection and get that down there. On the next project, the heat server, that is from Gabe. And that will allow him to manage the heat in all of the schools from home or remotely. So if we're shut down, if there's an issue, he won't have to drive in to actually go into the school to monitor the heat. Bathroom at the middle school. We have 1 staff bathroom at the middle school and it's in the office. So if you've been in the building and you know it's just piecemealed, that if you're up in the 8th grade wing and you need to use a restroom, you have to use the restroom with the students. And so by constructing a bathroom, it will help separate the students and the staff. It will provide more opportunities or places to wash hands. So it will just increase sanitation in that regard. We need to purchase more PPE. I have no idea how much money. I threw in 10,000, knowing that we can get some free from the Department of Education. We also, this year, we spent money on contact tracing. The way it worked out this year is that contact tracing only had to happen on Friday nights, Saturdays, and Sundays. It rarely seemed to happen during the workday or during the week. We would go home, then the call would come at 6 o'clock at night and we were back at work. The nurses were back at work. And they've put in a lot of time. And so we paid them for all of that additional time outside of their workday. So I've thrown in about $30,000 to cover that. So overall, this is not going to show since that's frozen. Right now, all of this added together, I am over the budget by about $22,800. So I'm gonna have to shave off some money. I'm hoping once we finalize the hiring of staff, that I can update my numbers there. And that will shave a few dollars off. Right now, I'm overestimating because I don't know what people's salaries are gonna be. And of course, we're estimating for next year because we don't know how much health insurance is going to go up. We don't know about salaries, that type of thing. So that's what I'm proposing. We're proposing, the administrative team has looked at this. We've talked about it again at previous board meetings and budget meetings, but if you have input, if members of the public have input, they certainly should reach out, send me an email and give me some feedback. But we've tried to be pretty thoughtful about how we use this money. And we're using it to support our students, trying to lower class sizes and also trying to address two things at once. One, issues that we have in the building that if we don't cover with this, we would have to pay for out of our budget, but which at the same time truly meet the expectations and the requirements of the federal money. So, Jim.
I was looking at the Easton Randolph's parking lot situation. Are you talking about resurfacing the existing parking lot and expanding it, or what are you talking about on that?
That it would be a new expanded parking lot. It would be right in front of the grade 1-2 addition.
Okay.
It would provide us an additional 12 to 15 parking spaces.
Thinking that would be staff parking probably?
I don't know,
Makes
or
a
it
lot
could
of
be
sense.
visitors, I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Because it's a zoo getting in and out of there.
Yes, it is. It's a real safety issue.
Other questions?
I just was trying to do some quick mental math, and I wanted to share appreciation that it looks like about a third of that's going into improvements to the physical plant. That's gonna pay off for years and be a great benefit both to the schools and the taxpayers. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. That's what we're trying to do.
That's one of the goals. Angela.
I want to just emphasize also that while we are hiring staff for safety and physical reasons, we're also hiring staff to reduce class size to enable a lower student to staff ratio and support our learning and work really hard at accelerating learning rather than learning loss, accelerating the learning, meeting students where they're at, and having the support staff and the teaching staff readily available to make that happen. And a significant portion of money is set aside for staffing for that purpose, for launching really great new curriculum and instructional materials. The entire ELA system actually has embedded social emotional learning based on the Castle framework, built into the routines and practices to ensure productive discourse through K through 8 and teaching students how to have effective conversations about their learning in literacy, but in ways that also attend to ensuring that all learners, no matter where they're starting from in their learning, can actively engage in in those conversations. So it's like what we call low floor, high ceiling. So no matter where students are at, they can contribute to the learning, and then there's differentiated supports to ensure that students are then met in small groups through something called structured literacy practices. And so that is a big portion of, that is a really big portion of the funding as well. And it's really important. And I'm so incredibly grateful for the support that the curriculum committee and the full board has offered. And this investment also is for at least 10 years. I mean, in our elementary levels, the investment is significant. In our middle school level, I can't promise a 10-year investment using the same resources, but I can promise that it will certainly shift the way our students are experiencing teaching and learning and engagement inside classrooms, which we hope is timely given what we've gone through for the last 18 months.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you.
Great, so there's that. Next update, the modular units. So the modular units are not currently on site. When we ordered them, we anticipated that they would be delivered in the middle of July. But I think Cullen captured some of the challenges very well. A shortage of staff, shortage of materials, shipping issues have pushed back the company's ability to meet that deadline. And of course, there are many, many school districts around the country that are purchasing modular units, so they're pretty overwhelmed. So what I know of today, and this, I'll be like Dr. Shaw, this could change in 24 hours, but what I know today is that our modulars are supposedly in production right now in Georgia. And we're in production with other school districts in the state. We're not the only one. So we have 1 4-classroom unit and a 2-classroom unit. I think Portland is being produced right now, and they're getting like 10 of them. And then another school district. So once they're all done, okay, they're all manufactured, then they're going to be shipped to Maine. And it's 4 days to ship them, to get them from Georgia to Maine. Right now, we're tentatively anticipating that they will arrive the week of August 23rd. Okay, so yeah, we have student staff arriving on the 30th. So what that means is we're not going to be ready to use them on day 1. So the building administrators are aware that they need to develop Plan B. Work with their staff to find an alternative. Now, once they're delivered, the company needs to put them together. Of course, they're delivered in pieces. With the staffing shortage, I have no idea how long it's going to take them to be on our site to put them together. If there are 10 arriving for another school district in Southern Maine, which is much larger than ours, who knows? They may start there first and put them all together. I don't know how many crews that they have. So whether they'll have a crew in each district, we just don't have that information. What we have told them is that of the 2 units being delivered here, Helen Thompson is the priority. They need to get Helen Thompson done first because they have 4 classrooms and those are all going to be used as instructional classrooms. Whereas Pittston, they only have 2, they can find an alternative. I think they're going to look at the library as an option. So that's all that I know for the time being about the modular units. So yes, Jim.
Quick question. Did I understand correctly that they're going to ship all the units at the same time to Maine? Are they trying to shift? Do they have a production crew that comes to the different locations and will go around the state? Or because it makes no sense that they wouldn't send 10 units to Augusta as soon as it's, or to Portland as soon as they're done, get those done and get the Gardner stuff done and then shipped. It makes no sense to me.
I don't know.
Could we ask the
I
question?
have not spoken with anyone directly. Gabe is in conversation with them. And so he has spoken to the individual who is responsible for the production aspect of it. And he was trying to get in contact with the person who is responsible for the transporting. That was a different individual. And so I will ask Gabe for an update. It probably won't be till next week.
I was thinking of the next meeting we have.
Yeah, by the next meeting, we will definitely
If
have
he
an
could give
update.
us maybe ask the question about what the reasoning is behind it or what the reason is for it, because it makes absolutely no production sense to me. Having sold a few pieces of equipment over the years, send it when you got it.
I don't know, it may be availability of drivers. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, but if you got 30 units being shipped to Maine, if you
Right.
send 10 at a time, whatever it takes.
I hear you.
Anyways,
Frankly,
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter when they get here. It matters when we can put kids in them.
Right,
yeah.
That's
right,
when they're set up. That's really what we need to know.
right.
Do we have everything we need to go into those available immediately, or is that still off?
No, we do not have everything that we need immediately. As I mentioned, some of the materials that we need are going to be funded out of this grant. And I have not been able to submit the application for approval. We're working on it. We're close to it. Our hope is to submit it next week. So I'm not sure how long it will take for that material to turn around and be delivered. We have some, and I know Gabe has been working with the company who is getting the foundation ready, and he's lining up to make sure that once the units are constructed and put together, that we can have the electrician, that we can have the plumber, and we can have all of those utilities immediately hooked up and done as we need to have it done.
As I remember, it's a common electrical system and plumbing system that goes from module to module to module. So it shouldn't be terribly difficult to hook up those. Of course, the brand new production at West
you
Gardner is
also-
going to be pretty intensive.
Right, but you
lot of
also have to
delays,
have you have to have the heat, so we have to get the propane delivered, you have to get the tank, so there's a lot to it that needs to be done. before
And
we
there's
can
been
do this.
shortages on different building materials. I mean, it's been a nightmare. So,
So,
So if we get it here by the 23rd, like the best case scenario, like if you have a full crew available, does it take a week to set one of those up, or how long?
no, they said it takes a couple days to actually put the building together. So it's all of the other things that need to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The
it's gonna be,
electricity, and it will at least take a couple weeks to pull.
Do we have the underground work done at West Gardner?
My understanding is that the work is ready.
So we're unit ready just to drop them on?
That's my understanding.
Where are they placing the ones in West Gardner?
Um,
They are taking the basketball courts.
Yes, yeah, they have to. Yeah. Okay, other updates. Wanted to update you on a couple legislative items. One, there was LD 816 was passed, and it's an act to improve communication between school board members and school employees and members of the public. The language is very broad. It just says that, let me read it to you. It's very short. It just says that a school board shall regularly communicate with school employees in the school board, school administrative unit, and members of the public who reside within the boundaries of the school administrative unit. So you'll have to figure out how you want to do that. It may be that as a board, maybe this meets the criteria, or maybe you write a quarterly newsletter, and you send that out to the public and send that out to staff. That is just something that you need to be aware of and need to be prepared to respond to. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Another one that I wanted to bring to your attention is LD 993. This one is an act to retroactively grant sick leave days to public school employees affected by COVID-19. So basically what it does is it requires that the school district restore up to a maximum of 15 days to employees if the employee used any personal sick leave for any COVID-19 reason from January 1, 2021, until the employee has been granted a maximum of 15 days. So as a reminder, in MSAD11, for any staff member who was deemed a close contact, requiring that they were quarantined, or if they contracted COVID-19 and we were certain it was associated with the school district, we covered the cost. No one had to use their sick leave at all. So they were always made whole. So what this requirement is for employees who took time using their personal time for reasons that had nothing to do with their employment. So if they were, say they were a non-resident staff member whose child in another school district was quarantined, so they needed to be home to take care of their child, and they used sick time to do that, then this district needs to reinstate that sick time. Or if they participated in activities outside of school, you know, in their personal life, that resulted in them having to be quarantined or to contract COVID-19, then again, it is now our district taxpayers who have to pay to have up to 15 days restored. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of this new requirement or this new law.
With our employees, is unused sick time convertible to other forms of benefit? Like, can you cash it out at the end or?
No.
Or
When you retire, you have access to up to 30 sick days, unused sick days, that you can be paid for upon retirement. But generally, we don't have short-term disability. Schools don't have short-term disability. So that's what sick days are. But you're able to accumulate sick days. I think for teachers, it's 160 days, correct?
180.
80 days. And so if they accumulate up to 180 days, they get sick, something catastrophic, then that's what they have available to use while they have to be out of work. So anyways, I just wanted you to know that.
How exposed are we on that?
Andrea's doing the work right now. Andrea and her staff, they fortunately, throughout the course of this last year, they kept track of how sick days were used. And so they're doing that analysis right now.
Days don't need to be given back until October, which is when the law goes into effect. And I don't think we're as exposed as others might be because we've covered the cost of those individuals who were, as Pat said, who we deemed to be transmitted via school or.
Okay, so we've already taken some of those steps. Yeah.
Mhm. I'm really hoping that those 15 days or those days that we've counted for employees will count towards the 15 days allowed by the law. But I think we're waiting for further guidance from the attorneys.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I'm watching as Terry is learning this camera system. So we apologize to the public who's watching this if they're looking at a wall or if they're getting sick spinning around. So, but it's a new system and so we're figuring it out and so please bear with us.
The blur is normal.
So annually, what's the rate of sick time accrued by employees?
12 sick days a year,
Oh, okay.
to a maximum of 180.
12 for teachers, it's different for others.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that you were aware. Just before I came to this meeting, I received a list of all of the new legislation that was approved this year. So I haven't had a chance to look at it, but these were two of significant impact that I wanted to make sure you were aware of. Let's see, what else do I have? I wanted you to know that in June, I don't remember when it was, in June, maybe? You voted to accept a purchase and sales agreement for the sale of Gardner high school modular unit so that we could get it out of there. I just want to bring it to your attention that is now null and void. The cost to have it removed was significantly greater than the person anticipated because the roof had to come off. He wasn't anticipating that the roof would have to be moved. So given the price, that person is no longer interested. So Hope Field Committee is meeting weekly. And so our next meeting is next Wednesday, and I'm certain we'll discuss this and try to decide how best to proceed, but most likely we'll try to put it out there to sell it.
Can it
Get rid
be
of it.
cut in pieces and reused, repurposed?
Yeah, but the roof has to come off. So the roof has to be moved. It's too tall with the slant. It will not, you can't transport it under telephone poles.
But
Under
if
wires,
we
telephone
kept it in our district at the high school and just cut it into say 3 sections and repurposed it for other uses.
From what I am told by Gabe, it is not in very good shape.
Oh,
And the amount of work that it would take to remodel it is pretty significant. So their recommendation is just to get rid of it.
It went from being a classroom probably,
Before my arrival,
I remember, it's been 15-ish or more years ago, it was a classroom, and at that point, it didn't have plumbing in it. And so students were having to go from that, it was the alt ed program for the middle school at the high school, and if students needed to use the restroom, they had to go over to the high school. And it's been used as storage for It has
a
been,
number of years.
yes,
It just
and
looks
it's-
kind of beat up and
it's
Is it a
tired.
candidate for a practice burn? But
That's what I was just saying. I was just thinking.
And
that's a big bonfire.
then the last thing that I would just add that is not on here, I just want to make sure that you guys you do know that we received a FOIA request, a freedom of access request. And so we received a request to release all communication to and from the school board pertaining to critical race theory and all of its aliases. I want you to know that Terry and my office, we've spent about 22 hours working on this. And Terry went through all of your archived emails. And we've produced, we're guessing it's around 2,500 paper copies that we are now scanning so that we can send it to the person who has requested it. And I would just, as a reminder to board members, everything that you say, everything that you do as a board member is public information. Whatever you say can be on the front page of a newspaper. So you always want, whatever you write with that lens, that includes anything that you put in Messenger and Facebook, anything in a private message, that's public information, a text, a personal email. So really encourage board members, you have a district email for a reason. It's because it's archived, we can access it, and it's a protection for all of you. You could, in certain circumstances, you could be faced with a situation where your personal emails all have to be released, whether they are school board related or not. It's not left up to you to provide it to us. And everything that you write has to be made available for someone to go through to determine what's appropriate and what's not. So please be mindful as a board. Everything that we discuss, we have to discuss in public. We cannot have private conversations. Not that you have, I'm not implying that that has happened, because you've been very good about that. But it's just an opportunity to remind us that everything that you do has to be done in public, and everything that you write is public information. So please only use the school board policy, the school board email account that you were provided.
For school.
for school purposes. Right, don't use it for personal purposes on the other end, right? So,
My bills.
yeah.
Okay. And that concludes our public business. We have an executive session. So
we need a motion to go into executive session, and there will not be action coming out of executive session. So I don't think we need to continue with the live streaming, okay? So we do need a motion to go in.
So moved.
Second.
all those in favor?
Yes.
Okay.
Was that unanimous?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And I've asked Andrea to stay.
Drive safe.
Hi, Gwen.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I'll be fast.